So now I'd like to introduce a special IAPMD volunteer, Aaron Kinghorn. His beautiful wife suffered with PMDD for over 15 years after she had surgery. Aaron got involved in providing peer support to partners of those who suffer with PMDD, and he currently leads IAPMD's Partner Video Support Group and a Facebook group for partners. He's convinced that when partners and caregivers are educated and supported, they can make a critical difference in the lives of those who suffer with this devastating condition. To help validate that, Aaron conducted a global study of PMDD partners in 2020, which he did share with us today, and he's going to be sharing with us more. You would have saw it in the pre-read materials. His paper, a preliminary study into the impact of PMDD on partners, was sent to you, and hopefully you all took a moment to read it. And if not, Aaron's going to go through it with us now. Please welcome Aaron.
Thank you, Sandy. That made it sound so official, so official. Thank you, first of all, just for having me here. But most of all, thank you for the moving and incredible remarks that were expressed earlier on in the other session. I wish I could just hand you all a megaphone and just have it broadcast to the world, because everyone needs to know about that. So I once had a really bad cough. One of those coughs where it feels like someone stuffed your trachea with sandpaper and punched you in the diaphragm. It was really bad. And I felt so sorry for myself. I started coughing, and after I caught my breath, I turned to my wife and exclaimed, "This cough is horrendous." And at that moment, my wife gave me a look that could kill someone. Why? Well, she was in hospital in the middle of a painful labour with our second child. The comparison of suffering that we were experiencing was markedly different at that time. I had a bad cough, and she was pushing a baby out of her body. One of these things is not like another, and one of these things is definitely more painful than the other. 12 years later, I still occasionally, after a nasty cough, will explain, "This cough is horrendous." But this is how it feels to be discussing PMDD's impact on partners. You don't want to talk about it because your partner has it so much worse. I can't imagine what it's like to have a PMDD and never will really understand. I'm so sensitive as well to the fact that women suffering with PMDD have a whole host of other secondary problems, including delayed diagnosis, limited treatment options, combined with the fundamental ignorance of the condition on a global scale. More awareness, resources, and treatment aren't simply desirable. They are critically essential and long overdue for PMDD patients. And for this reason, I'm mindful that sufferers stay at the centre of the PMDD experience, and that examining the experience of partners doesn't undermine or detract from the essential work that's done to perform to help them. I don't want to be that guy that after years of systemic ignorance of women's health issues turned around and says, "Please, what do you think of the men? This is not what this is about, and this is not what I'm about." However, partners and caregivers often exist in the shadow cast by their partner's suffering, where the intensity of the partner's PMDD overshadows some of the difficulties that they might face. And shining a light on these difficulties will provide dividends for both sufferers and caregivers. Each participant and stakeholder in the PMDD experience deserves to be able to draw out their own space and to recount their own lived experience and views. And understanding impact is the first step in the journey, I guess, to equip and resource the people closest to PMDD so that they're not just simply passive bystanders, but educated, supported advocates who improve the lives of those who suffer. So you probably saw on the previous slide there was a picture of me. And that, yeah, that's quite a summary of who I am. I'm Aaron. I live in the northeast of England. I'm married to Jude, who is the most wonderful person I know, and we have 4 children. It's a testament to the diversity of this roundtable event that nestled between preeminent world PMDD authorities and amazing PMDD patients, we also have a dentist. How random is that? Tell me about it. But the reason I'm speaking and presenting, as Sandy introduced, is that I've been a partner for someone who's had PMDD. I've been with my wife since 2003, and we became aware of PMDD in 2008 via Daytime TV and PubMed, long story. But despite never being formally diagnosed with the prospect of daily rating diarrhea over 2 months, my wife, almost 10 years later, had surgery for PMDD in 2017, and our lives are very different now. So I come from a position of being a partner and seeing PMDD from the front row. It was torture for her, and as I tried to see the world through her eyes, it changed my life. I made lots of mistakes over the years, and there's lots of things I would have done differently. I'm keen to help improve the PMDD environment for other people suffering alongside PMDD. I deliver video peer support groups for partners every month, and I'm privileged to meet some earnest, compassionate partners who are trying to do their best for their loved ones. I was asked today to share results of a survey that I performed a few months ago. Next slide, please. Thank you. So my wife was in hospital for a kidney infection. Just previous slide. Thank you. My wife was in hospital for a kidney infection. The kids were in bed and I had a couple of hours, so I drafted up this survey. Yes, I wanted to examine some of the themes that were repeatedly brought up on social media and see if they were representative of the experience of other partners. And at that point, I had no idea that I'd be presenting this to a group of such esteemed international PMD heavyweights. I've no real research experience other than some familiarity with reading academic papers for my job. And the survey wasn't commissioned at that stage or associated with any academic institution or charity, including IAPMD. The questions were broad-ranging, but focused primarily on the partner's perceptions of being in a relationship with someone with PMDD. So there's lots of limitations to the survey. It certainly isn't a controlled scientific study, so I'd urge a lot of caution in interpreting in the results. However, the results are representative of what I see from interaction with partners and my own personal experience. Next slide. I thought we might get 30 respondents, so I was really happy when we got almost 100. There's clearly some appetite to be heard. 78% identified as male and 15% of participants identified as female. We generally have a high representation and participation of LGBT partners in the video support and Facebook groups, and this survey is reflective of that. Most respondents were from the USA and Europe, and there was one from Antarctica. Big shout out to someone in Antarctica. Most of the respondents as well were in the age range you'd expect to see with those who are in a relationship with someone with PMDD. And there's also a nice distribution in the length of the relationship with the sufferer. So I asked how much their partner's PMDD affected different aspects of their life. The most impact seemed to be on the relationship, unsurprisingly. 90% of partners described that PMDD had an extreme or considerable effect on their relationship, with the majority describing it as extreme. The other notable impact seemed to be on the general mental well-being of the partner. Between 76 and 85% of the partners surveyed described the impact of PMDD on their own mood, mental health and happiness as extreme or considerable. Having asked about the impact, I asked a second question about if the impact of these factors were positive or negative. I think it's sufficient to say that the impact of PMDD was overwhelmingly negative, with 88 to 92% reporting a negative or very negative effect on their own mood, happiness, mental health, and relationship with their partner. Next slide, thank you. I also want to see if the participants in the survey were more or less likely to experience changes in well-being during the premenstrual phase alongside their partners who had PMDD. I anticipated that there might be a degree of almost emotional contagion where the PMDD patient's emotions and behaviours directly trigger similar emotions and behaviours in their partners. The reciprocal situation, I guess, is a hazard to the relationship, as each person has the potential to reinforce each other's worsening state. Partners report that during the premenstrual phase, they were more likely to experience an increase in stress levels, negative mood changes, and participants also report they were more likely to become irritable and more depressed during the premenstrual phase. 70% of partners report they were more likely to have thoughts about ending their relationship during the premenstrual phase. Emotional and physical abuse are very common themes on partner support forums. I was interested to see if this was just an overrepresentation of the issue by a minority or if it was more commonplace. The most frequently reported abusive behaviour was baiting, followed by gaslighting and unfounded accusations. The least frequently reported form of abuse was physical. However, half of participants report experiencing physical abuse from their partner, with at least 10% experiencing the abuse frequently or very frequently. The survey would suggest that there's a high prevalence, but I'd also urge a lot of caution. These questions aren't standardised. It's really hard to compare with other groups. So yeah, I'd urge a lot of caution with overstating these results. It's been a few years now since my wife had surgery, and I personally recognise the long-term impact PMDD had on me. Amongst various factors I asked about in the survey, participants identified that their stress levels were the most impacted, followed by happiness and effects on mental health. Individuals' perception of themselves was also negatively affected, with 73% reporting a negative impact on their self-confidence and 69% experiencing a negative effect on their own self-worth, with over half reported a negative impact on their physical health. But despite me serving up a thoroughly sumptuous serving of negativity surrounding the impact of PMDD, there are some glimmers of hope. One of them was the chart you see on the right, not the left, the right, that shows just how the majority of partners felt that their relationship was strong, with almost a quarter feeling that it was extremely strong. The extreme circumstances of PMDD in the relationship in some cases may encourage tighter collaboration between couples, requiring better communication, more empathy and understanding. Having a PMDD relationship is love in the battlefield and working under heavy fire. And this reflects my own experience. Getting through PMDD has deepened our understanding and communication together. I feel like most worthwhile things in life had a cost, either in time, money, mental exertion, or emotion. A PMDD relationship comes at a high cost, but to me, it makes it infinitely more valuable. I was and still happy to pay that price for what I have today. She is awesome. However, PMDD does seem to trigger partners to engage in what I guess relationship termination ideation, where exit strategies are considered, or perhaps we could call them extreme coping strategies, with 90% of partners remarking that PMDD had caused them to consider ending the relationship at some stage. I was interested to find what interventions partners were making and if they were having a positive impact or what advice they'd give. The advice that partners did give seemed to coalesce around certain themes: encouraging to seek treatment, providing emotional support, and being educated around PMDD. There were also some partners who were cleaning in dark place and provided a more pessimistic view. Interventions that partners made to help their partner's PMDD focused again, offering emotional support, not engaging in arguments, but sadly a popular answer was nothing in a few cases. What we'd love to see as an area of research is to ask PMDD patients, what does your partner do that helps you? I had a medical statistician friend, as we all do, don't we? I'm sure. I asked him to look for any statistical significance amongst the data. We looked at age, length of relationship, and if the partner's partner was undergoing any treatment or not. And we found the following. Partners in a PMDD relationship for more than 7 years seem to be significantly more likely to report an effect of PMDD on their immediate family relationships, a more negative effect on the relationship with their partner, mental health and stress. They're also more likely to describe their partner as being less engaged in seeking treatment. Partners over the age of 40 were also significantly more likely to report frequent name-calling, gaslighting, unfounded accusations, and controlling behaviours, and were more likely to report a negative effect on their long-term happiness and describe their partner as having less control over symptoms. Older participants also reported that their partners were less engaged in seeking treatment for PMDD. Treatment seemed to make a difference though. We found that having a partner who was not undergoing treatment meant, again, partners were more significantly to report name-calling, controlling behaviours, unfounded accusations, and long-term negative effects on their physical health and views about relationships. But having a partner who was undergoing treatment meant that participants in the survey were more likely to report a positive impact on their leisure time and hobbies, physical health, and being less likely to consider ending the relationship. So in summary, yeah, partners feel like PMDD has a severe impact on their mood, mental health, and happiness. And the perceived impact of PMDD on the partner's relationship seems to be extreme enough that many partners do consider ending the relationship. Partners felt that they frequently experienced abusive behaviour from their partner. And being older and being in the relationship for longer, or having a partner not undergoing treatment seemed to increase the risk for a more negative impact. I've interacted with many PMDD patients who have supportive partners and who provide valuable care. But who is supporting the supportive partners? Could it be their own partner that has PMDD? Many supportive caregivers find it difficult to talk to their partner who has PMDD as they recognize the guilt, the suffering, absolute unhappiness that they might be already experiencing. Partners don't want to worsen the situation by revealing sometimes the impact on them. PMDD patients have enough problems without someone else adding to theirs. The complexity and emotional investment into a PMDD relationship also means that partners may find it difficult to deal objectively with the problems, and communicating together effectively is difficult. What about family members or friends? We all know that that can produce a variable response based on their willingness to understand and listen. It can be frustratingly difficult to communicate the severity of the situation. It also feels like a breach of confidence between romantic partners to be sharing what is often considered quite personal information, even when the consent to share. I just didn't talk about it. What about therapy or counselling? We're all aware that finding a good PMDD therapist, or even one who has heard or understands PMDD, is like finding a £20 note in the street. It rarely happens, and when it does, it's a pleasant surprise and a remarkable event. In the survey we performed, we found that 18% of cases, it was a partner who recognised PMDD in the relationship first, and slightly behind doctors at 19%. Partners could be a tool in early recognition, but face complex barriers in raising it with a spouse or partner. For some partners, whose loved one refuses further investigation or treatment for PMDD, the partner looks on watching the repeated monthly suffering, but feels helpless to change the situation. So what support is available to partners at the moment? Next slide, please. So this slide has been left intentionally blank. Previous slide. As it represents an absolute void in the support systems available. But it also represents a clear space, a blank canvas, and it's an opportunity to create a space and to utilise a support network. Next slide. Here at this roundtable event, we've had some amazing people. We've heard from some amazing people who are doing amazing things. Imagine if each sufferer of PMDD had their own live-in advocate. Each person had their own Sandy or Sheila. What a difference that would make. If we can educate and support partners, we can change them from being passive partners to being active caregivers who will help improve their partner's PMDD experience while simultaneously improving their own situation. I feel that currently we will overlook what could be a fundamental, significant positive health intervention for PMDD, and that's the caregiver. There's an army of caregivers that could be mobilised. When the sufferer wins at PMDD, everyone wins, caregivers and care providers. Well, next slide, please. It wouldn't be a recommendation slide if we didn't have the classic more research needed recommendation, would it? But we do. We need proper published research, more than just my little survey, which is why I've teamed up with a really lovely neuroscientist who has a black hat to look in more depth at PMDD and relationships. And anyone who's remotely interested in getting involved, please message me. I will love you forever. More research is going to help us develop evidence-based interventions to assist partners, but I'd also advocate establishing a formal support network or even a space for caregivers to share best practice and provide peer support. And finally, an essential component is incorporating couples counselling. Particularly relationship-focused counselling is an intervention for PMDD sufferers. So, in the end, thank you for listening, everyone. And thanks so much for all the great work that you do.